Welcome back to MotorLand Aragón. It's round 5 of the FIM CEV Repsol. My name is Tom Brooks. Alongside me is Fran Wild, and it is time for a very exciting race. The first of the European Talent Cup races to come here at a scorching circuit in Aragón. We're slap bang in the middle between Barcelona and Madrid in terms of distance, and you can see here the circuit, 5 kilometers in length, 14 laps for these runners and riders. It's an anti-clockwise track as well, so we've got 10 right-hand corners and 7 that are left. So it does make it a very unique challenge of this one. It is going to be exciting to see how these riders fare over the course of this race here, Fran. We've got 46 riders set to take to the grid for the European Talent Cup, and well, we could talk about how the form has gone so far this season, but there really isn't a lot to talk about in terms of people being at the sharp end consistently, because it's just so unpredictable in the European Talent Cup. Yeah,
it's been a super interesting up and down season so far, and that obviously means that everything's so open, and it's so exciting. There's just so many riders in every single race fighting it out, so I think MotorLand should be a good one. It's pretty long and it's very challenging, but I think these guys should be able to make some magic where maybe a bigger bike wouldn't be able to attempt to pass. These guys might be a little bit more eager to really get shuffling the pack around this lap.
Well, one thing we should mention, if you are brand new to the European Talent Cup, first of all, welcome along. It's great to have your company. This runs, of course, in the same vein, really, as the Asian Talent Cup and the British Talent Cup, in the sense that they all run on exactly the same Honda NSF 250 RC motorcycles, all identical in every way, shape or form. They're standard, out of the box, and they really are quite competitive. All the riders, of course, it really does come down to just how quick that rider can be over the course of the race as to how the performance pans out. The big talking point, though, going into this weekend is 658 Squadra Corsa Championship leader Matteo Patacca, not here this weekend. He is out due to injury, and going into this weekend, he had quite a significant advantage in the championship of 24 points. 2 races on the board for these guys, 50 points up for grabs. We will, well, could see that turning on its head by the this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. I think he'll be watching and eagerly hoping that no one who's currently that close to him will be able to certainly do the double, or at least even get 2 podiums, and that he can keep that lead fairly substantial. So yeah, it's bad luck for him. So I don't know, I think it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, he has really started to rise to the top there, and some really, really impressive performances from him. The first ever win for that Seach 58 team, so that was a pretty emotional one in Valencia. But we'll have to see how it pans out. Obviously, with the field so close and everything shuffling so quickly, it might not actually cost him that much, given that sizable points advantage he does have. But then, of course, it could also be much, much bigger by the end of the day. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Certainly will do. Well, the man who's on pole position is Jose Rueda, who is a name that's become quite familiar to us, really, over the course of this 2018 campaign so far. Rueda, a new name in the championship for this season, but he's had some very good flashes of speed behind the handlebars of that junior talent team. Junior team Estrella Galicia outfit, I should say, rather. Sits 10th in the championship, took his first podium at Catalonia last time out in the sole European Talent Cup race that we had so far, that we had there this year. And it is going to be very interesting to see how these riders fare here at MotorLand Aragón. A very different circuit, of course, in terms of characteristics to the Catalonia circuit that we were at just over a month ago. So it does make it very, very exciting indeed. You can see the riders there just making their way onto the grid. This is where the pole sitter will line up, and he will have Victor Rodriguez alongside him and Carlos Tordesillas. And you can see the junior Estrella Galicia team making their way to the grid. And Jose Rueda, of course, one of the younger riders, as we said, one of the newer riders in the grid as well, has been racing in Spain for many years now. And, well, it almost looks like his helmet's just a little bit too big for his body. If you've ever seen those motorcycle characters that go around really in the paddock with the huge crash helmets on at certain circuits, that's kind of what Jose Rueda looks like. Just 12 years of age he is. You can see there his first podium he had last time out at Catalonia. Has had some good performances, not necessarily in terms of results. He's also got Julian Simon on the left-hand side of your picture, and Julian Simon knows this track really like the back of his hand, so he'll probably be lending him some very helpful tips.
Yeah, definitely. It's always nice to have someone like that in your arsenal. And like we were saying earlier, our colleagues at Movistar had Nico Terol in the box earlier on their broadcast as well. And he's another who is very involved now in sort of rider coaching and in that support role, in his case with the Angel Nieto team. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting to see that and how it can really have such a positive effect for those guys as well.
We're looking at Victor Rodriguez, or we just were here. He's part of the PlayStation Leglise team, and Victor, of course, having raced in the British Championship for quite a significant amount of time, has made the step over to the European Talent Cup, and that is really good to see as well for the number 14. That is Carlos Torres on the front row of the grid, and he's got a photograph in memory of Andreas Perez, of course, his fellow Spaniard, as we mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, who sadly lost his life last time out at the Barcelona-Catalunya circuit. Good performance from Carlos Torres in third position on the front row of the grid, because, of course, last time out he was fighting in and amongst the charge for victory. Fran crashed out quite heavily at turn number 5, but it seems to have not affected him too much so far.
Yeah, it's pretty important that things like that don't dent your confidence too much when you're a youngster. You've got to get back out there, give it some gas again, and show what you can do. So it's good for him, good confidence booster to be on the front row, especially it's such a difficult track. So, yeah, it's pretty good. And Daniel Munoz again, great performance. Not quite the glory of pole, but very, very, very good form nevertheless. And it's going to be interesting to see what this track is like for these guys, I think. Obviously, all the same machinery. There's a couple of long straights. There's an awful lot of different types of corners. There's elevation changes. There's everything, and it's a 5-kilometer lap. So it's going to be pretty good.
Well, one thing we should be expecting certainly is a slipstream battle. That's going to be pretty certain, is it not?
Definitely. I think yeah, these guys should definitely be able to make the most of that, and on a couple of occasions. Little bit nervous about maybe turn 1 with that slipstream for so many bikes, but there is.
What are you trying to say there? 47 riders going into one corner, a 90-degree left-hander nonetheless.
I think it'll be absolutely fine. No, I think obviously there's that big runoff there, so there's plenty of space for them to shuffle and sort themselves out. But I think it could be pretty dramatic for these guys, especially into turn 1. Hopefully we'll be able to get a clean getaway, or at least just a few people out wide and then straight back on.
Adrian Fernandez here for the IO team. You can see his brother, Raul Fernandez, on the right-hand side of your picture. And, well, a bit of a chip off the old block, really, is Adrian Fernandez. Some good performances he's had. A couple of top 5 finishes so far this year. Top 5 in qualifying as well. So
yeah, definitely. And then, obviously, Raul as well. You'd think maybe there's a conflict of interest there with that Angel Nieto brolly, but, well, they're not the brolly, the T-shirt holding the brolly. But, of course, he also subbed for Darren Binder, so obviously some nice cooperation going on there. Certainly
is, and we'll talk more about Raul Fernandez because he's been very impressive so far this year. Here is the teammate, though, to Adrian Fernandez, Lorenzo Felon, for the IO Academy team, and you can see they're 24th in the championship. One top 10 finish he's had so far this year, 1 DNF, and a couple of non-point scores. So again, as we've said, a couple of mixed results. They're a bit of a mixed bag of a season there for the Frenchman, but doing a good job to qualify inside that top 10. It's so competitive in this field in the European Talent Cup. Gaps, really, if you look at qualifying from the first row of the grid all the way down. I'm just going to have a quick look through my notes. All the way down to 9th position on the grid. That is 1 second that covers the top 9. Yeah,
it's pretty close, isn't it? And this is kind of the secret to Pataka's lead, really, as well. He's been he's been a winner, but he's also been pretty consistent. And if he's not won, he's not suddenly disappeared and like come home outside the points or and the like. But yeah, it should be interesting to see what they can do in his absence, really, and see who can pounce on the opportunity. Obviously, it's bad luck for him, but one good thing at least, he's going to miss one weekend, then we've got a bit of a longer break to be able to get back to full strength and come back and try and take that crown. I mean, the disappointing thing as well for Pataka is, of course, that it is 2 races here this weekend as well. Unlike last time where we only had the 1 European Talent Cup race, it is 2 races that he is going to be missing out on, so a potential 50 points as opposed to 25. I was trying to make it slightly better. Sorry. But that is definitely the downside, yeah. Obviously 1 round, but 2 races. But we'll have to see. Like we've been saying, there's quite a lot of inconsistency and such a huge grid that, yeah, who knows? It could be everything to play for, or it could actually still be Pataka with the big advantage when we come back to racing later in the year. Only time will tell. You can see there on board the number 28. That is Matteo Bartelli, the substitute, actually, for Matteo Pataka this weekend at the 658 Squadra Corsa team. 14 years of age is Bartelli, and you can see there, if I say substitute, I should say, you can see he's 15th in the championship. They do have some other riders up and down the grid as well. So Matteo Bartelli there, lining up inside the top 10 positions on the grid. Good to see for him, and good to see them still performing well despite the absence of their
their championship leader.
Yeah, definitely. I talked to Paolo Simoncelli around earlier in the year, and he was saying how both of his guys in this class have got such promise, and he really, really does believe in them a lot. So yeah, it's good. Obviously, Pataka at the moment has been the cream of that crop, but there's no slouch to come in the top 10 in this class and to qualify there, or to have some really good points finishes. So it's a job well done.
Alex Dieth here as well, 11th place on the grid for him. Really has been a challenging season so far in 2018. And Alex Dieth as well, one of the names that we saw in 2017 in the championship as well, and has decided to stay on in the European Talent Cup for this year. Hasn't made the step up to the Moto3 Junior World Championship, staying on and actually doing a very, very good job in 2017, but hasn't been really his way at all in 2018 so far. This season has been a bit of an uphill struggle for him. Some bad luck in some areas, a couple of unforced errors that have kind of really been forced out of him more than anything, that have made it a little bit interesting. So let's see how he fares. Here you can see the Best of Capital Dubai junior team. Of course, they compete in the Moto3 World Championship, and now, of course, they've got that link to the European Talent Cup. Here's Fermin Aldeguia. And you can see there just one finish on the board for him. That was a third place finish at Estoril in the opening round of the season. But let's see what he's going to be able to do here this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Once you've been on the podium once, you're going to want to do that again. And maybe that's the secret to, just pushing a little bit too hard. But hopefully these guys certainly will be cheering pretty hard by the looks of it. It's incredible, especially in Spain, the fan clubs that these guys have. When they're sort of 12, 13 years old, it's like, I don't have that many fans several decades later.
I'm not surprised, though, Fran, because you nor I are not motorcycle racers.
That's true, but, I thought it'd be worth something. Maybe a small Facebook group,
Well, we've set up a couple in our time as well to honour some of our colleagues, just as a bit of a jokey measure.
Indeed.
I'll set one up for you later on. Here's David Salvador we were just looking at, and David Salvador inside the top 15 in qualifying, but still starting a bit of a further way down the order. One of the things to mention really here in the European Talent Cup is that grid position, of course, it is important, but it's not as important as we've seen in some other categories, like, for example, in Moto2. If you qualify in 13th in Moto2, it's a very hard task to get to the front. On these bikes, such equal performance, it can be just that little bit easier.
Yeah, definitely, and I think as well with the slipstream zones, kind of like a little bit DRS-y there, but obviously there's a couple of places here where they can really use that slipstream to their advantage, and you can gain an awful lot. Like we saw a couple of years ago in Moto3 World Championship at Mugello, you had Mino crossing the line, I think 24th, 25th on the penultimate lap, and then he won the race just from that tactical, really well-used slipstream. So yeah, like you say, it can be a lot easier for these guys to get to the front, but that's not to say it is actually easy. Simply easier.
Well, deep breath time. Let's have a look through the 40-odd runners and riders on the grid. Rueda, Rodriguez, Torresias on the front row, Danny Munoz, David Munoz, and Adrian Fernandez on row 2. Row 3, Loris Fellon breaking the Spanish charge ahead of Xavier Artigas and Luis Verdugo. Then we have row 4, which is Matteo Bartelli for 658 with Alex Dieth and Fermin Aldeguia alongside David Salvador, Andres Vostatek and Julian Hirao on row number 5. You just saw row 6 there. Row 7, Clement Rouget, Angel Heredia, Pietu Pevalainen quite a way down the order. Likewise, Philip Riheshek, Josh Watley, Ike Garcia, Colin Felthausen, Dirk Geiger and Marvin Seedraft in 27th position. Row 10, Rick Dunnick, Jamie Davis, Alex Milan. Then we have row 11, Gavin Plonk, Matteo Falzoni, Daniel Holgado rather, on the 11th row of the grid. Row 12 you just saw. Row 13, Edward Melgar, Miguel Parra, Salvatore Ragusa rather I should say. Then we have row 14 and row 15, Kenny Koskinen completing the order, as well as Andreas Koffler on the final row of the grid. So out of the 46 riders that qualified, we have 44 as a maximum capacity making their way onto that grid.
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge to get all those names out. I'm impressed. Well done.
Thank you.
Now, obviously, yeah, it's an awful lot of bikes on the grid. It should be a pretty good race, I think. This obviously with, like we've been saying, the slipstream. But turn 1, it all could come down to turn 1 for a lot of these guys first time round. Just hope we get a nice clean start and everyone stays calm and at least gets out of turn 2 and up that little hill there nicely in line.
Well, 44 runners and riders making their way onto that grid, making their way down towards that first corner. As we said, it's going to be very interesting. You can see really just how packed the grid is on the formation lap here, and that is going to be magnified times by about 55 going in towards that first corkscrew chicane on the opening lap. You can see here your pole man, the number 95. That is Jose Rueda then for the Junior Estrella Galicia team. And let's see what he's going to be able to do.
Definitely. There's so many bikes. It looks like at the end of this race day, one of the best things about the CV, obviously, it's free to come and see it. And then here at Motorland today, the track will then open for anyone who's come on a bike, and you can do a lap. Obviously not too much of a crazy lap, but a nice controlled and calm ride of the track for free as part of this event.
Bought my levers, I could have borrowed one.
You should have. But, and it almost looks like that. There's that many of them, and obviously going nice and slow on the warm-up lap, just testing out how the track feels. It's crazy, but look, just incredible to see all of the field there.
Well, quite a slow
coming down the back straight.
Quite a slow warming up. Everyone's sort of thinking, well, if you can slow down, I'm going to slow down. And if I slow down, you're going to slow down. It's kind of a concertina effect that's sort of going on here.
Definitely. It's almost like bunching up behind a safety car restart or something. Bit extreme, but obviously everyone's going for the stoner approach, which is hang back. I want to be the last of the grid. I'm going to do this on my terms.
Well, you've got 44 riders doing that, though. That's a bit of a problem.
Exactly. Then it's simply a hold-up.
Well, we might get this race underway here at some point today as all the riders make their way onto the grid. The number 95 of Jose Rueda then. What is he going to be able to do from that pole position? Interestingly here, of course, he is really on the outside going in towards that first corner. So is that a bit of a disadvantage? Some would say it would be, but will he be able to use that wider line, the racing line no less, going in towards that first corner to his advantage if he gets off of the starting blocks well? And keep an eye out for the second row of the grid as well. You've got Danny Munoz, David Munoz and Adrian Fernandez all in and amongst the mix. So let's see what they are going to be able to do. 44 riders then making their way onto the grid. Let's hope they all get themselves in the right position here.
We have rather a good view of this as well because there's so many of them. It stretches right down to our commentary position.
It reminds me of a certain circuit, and somebody's got a problem on the grid here, Fran. I think that could actually be Josh Watley by the looks of things. It might not, or it's definitely a bright white shark helmet, so it might not be him, but the colours I just saw flashing there looked like he did have a bit of a problem here on the grid. So let's wait and see whether that goes any further. Doesn't look like it's going to, so that problem has indeed been sorted out, and 44 riders will get ready to head down towards the first corner. Stand by your beds then, look to the top left corner of your screen, wait for those red lights to come on, and European Talent Cup 14 laps of race one is go! And it's a great start from the middle of the front row for Victor Rodriguez. Jose Rueda really did have a bit of a sloppy getaway, and the number 7 as well of Danny Munoz making his way into that first corner. Are they all going to make it very cleanly through that first turn? And amazingly, they all managed to hold on, holding your breath through there we were, but everybody making their way through relatively unscathed, so that is very good to see. It's going to take a couple of corners for us to work out really whereabouts everybody is, but it is a very good start, no less, for Victor Rodriguez. He has got the number 95 of Jose Rueda behind him as well. And as the riders go through that first sector as well, it's looking pretty interesting. Carlos Torrecilla still up there in and amongst the mix. Danny Munoz having just lost a couple of positions despite that promising start. And as they come down in towards that reverse corkscrew area for the first time, the middle sector of the lap, it's still pretty much as you were in terms of the top three.
Yeah, definitely. I think Rodriguez absolutely nailed that start. Pretty perfect off the line there. And like you say, Rueda was on the back foot. Oh, and a bit of a wobble there as well. He wants to be careful, not push too hard. It's really, really early in the race. A bit of frustration maybe at having lost that lead from pole, but there's no rush. Just nice and calm, keep it in line, and then plan your attack well. But really, really impressive, obviously, for these guys. There's so many of them to get through that first couple of corners with no incidents and no drama is really, really impressive stuff.
Going in towards turn 12, which is a very possible passing opportunity. And you can see a few riders there almost going 3 wide into that particular turn. Down the hill into the hard braking zone of turn number 14, which does follow through turns 15 and on towards that back straight. And you can see there Victor Rodriguez out in front. You can see somebody who's made their way. That's Colin Feldhausen, unfortunately, for Nikos Racing. And Nikos only running the one bike here this weekend. Normally they have a bike in Moto 2 and in the European Talent Cup. But Colin Feldhausen just making his way back on into the race as we look at pit exit. He'll be coming through there in just a few moments' time. You can see there the Dutchman just makes his way out of pit lane and onto the racetrack. He's going to be nearly a lap down, though, on the rest of the competitors. So quite a lot of work to do as they come over the timing line. And now out in front, it is Jose Rueda. So he did miss that overtake, unfortunately, but it's not going to be lasting for too long as Victor Rodriguez now takes to the charge and takes to the front. And look at Fernandez as well, thinking about finding a way through. That's Adrian Fernandez. He's up into third place as he goes all the way around the outside and holds it through turn number 2. And Colin Feldhausen, rather, Carlos Torrecillas, I should say, getting really ruffled up in the opening stages of this one as well, because he's going to come under pressure as well from the number 7, of course. That is Daniel Munoz. So Danny Munoz trying to find his way past. And, well, he's found his way through in the part of the middle sector there. And Torres Diaz now coming under even more pressure from behind as the top 3 looks to try and take their charge. And you can see there Torres Diaz, again, a lot of pressure from behind. So it really does go to show that just one bad corner, one bad mistake that you make can really sort of put pay to between leading the race and being in 7th position in this one.
Yeah, definitely. They swarm past you so quick once there's that opportunity, and then obviously when you lose a position, usually you lose out as well, and maybe you don't quite have the drive, or depending on where the move is, etc., that can negatively affect you as well. Then another guy behind you is still pretty close to you, can take that opportunity as well, and it can be pretty difficult. It's also pretty mentally difficult to immediately bounce back from that, and that's one of the big things these guys need to learn as well. Obviously, they're so early in their careers, just learning to just take a deep breath. Okay, well, it's happened, reset, get back up in there and try and take those positions back pretty calmly.
Well, Julian Hirao, who won race 2 in the opening round of the season, only in 12th position, so he is going to have a bit of work to do to try and get himself fighting in contention for victory at the moment. He's not made quite the ground he'll have hoped to have done in the opening stages of this race. You can see, though, his teammate, Jose Rueda, pulling out of the slipstream, and Victor Rodriguez is going to get absolutely mugged down in towards turn 16, but he dives over into the racing line going into turn 16, forcing everybody else to back off. That was quite an aggressive bit of riding there, actually, from Victor Rodriguez, and through turn 17, he manages somehow, despite not having the advantage of a slipstream, to retain his lead.
Yeah, definitely. They're a big swarm behind him now, but he managed to close that off, which is fairly impressive. Obviously, Julian Simon finding that fairly fascinating. And yeah, it's going to be interesting with this slipstream. Obviously, so far, it's not actually had the effect you maybe would have expected. They've all been quite spread out, and obviously Rodriguez there was very keen to make sure that no one could benefit from his, and stayed well over the left-hand side of the track.
We've just had the tyre sheet through from the from Dunlop, the tyre supplier for the European Talent Cup. It's pretty useless, really, because everybody has to run the same compound of tyre here this weekend, or the same for the whole season, as a matter of fact. They're all on the medium compound, slick Dunlop rubber. So going down, though, in toward the right-hander, very, very close at the sharp end of the grid. And you can just see a tiny bit of daylight actually breaking out here between Victor Rodriguez and Jose Rueda, as once again, Adrian Fernandez coming under some pressure as well from Xavier Artigas, who's come from absolutely nowhere to be fighting inside the top 3.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't look quite as comfortable for those few guys sort of from 6th, 7th downwards to be hanging in with these guys at the front anymore. But we'll have to see. Obviously, the straights can make a real big difference. And like you said earlier, one corner can really cost you or gain you a lot when you're racing so close together and on all equal machinery as well. So it would be interesting, but I think Rodriguez is doing a really impressive job at the moment, just staying nice and calm at the front and just leading the way, and no mistakes, keeping it all nicely in line, and obviously managed to defend from that slipstream really, really well.
Well, doing an absolutely brilliant job. Victor Rodriguez there still leading the way there. You can see 3rd position of Xavier Artigas and Adrian Fernandez, who are going side by side down onto this back straight, and likewise Jose Rueda and the race leader of Rodriguez. And what is it going to be? It's going to be Spaniard versus Spaniard. It's Estrella Galicia versus JHK Leglie's bike. And Rueda hits the front for the first time here in this race. He manages to lead the way for the first time since the opening lap. So will he be able to try and use that to create an advantage, or will Rodriguez try and fight it back? You can guarantee Rodriguez is going to try to. And they're almost side by side once again down the start-finish straight. And look at this further back as well. An absolute swarm of riders as Rodriguez takes over at the front. And Danny Munoz, who was trying to be very optimistic into that first turn.
Yeah, I'm glad he calmed that down a little bit. Looked like it could have been a bit of a disaster, that. But Rodriguez there, you could see, was tempted to try and take it back on the inside of the final corner and thought better of it, and then just made the move into turn 1 instead and just kept that inside line. And again, you could see Rueda thinking about maybe taking it back again as well, but obviously thought it's better to keep it nice and calm at the moment, and they're both in the lead and have been the class of the field so far, although they've obviously got the chasing pack pretty close. They've not really been threatened from behind that much so far, so it'd be interesting to see if those guys behind are going to try and make a move.
Big moment there.
Big moment.
Xavier Artigas coming out onto the back straight. That was through turn 15. So managed to keep it all gathered up, but you see those moments quite often really on these motorbikes as well. Riders pushing the limits because they're just riding at 110% over the course of the race.
Yeah, completely. Like, that's I can't imagine what that feels like and how your heart must then leap a split second afterwards, almost as high as you've had to on the bike. It's, yeah, it must be just a momentary shot of adrenaline there, but nicely collected, and he's back into third, got that place back, and all calm and collected again now.
Well, it certainly causes your trousers to be a little bit tighter, I'll tell you that for nothing. But you can see there, Victor Rodriguez still leading the way, the top three, doing an absolutely brilliant job. Slightly wide, though, there for Victor Rodriguez. Is that going to be a bit of a tactic? Will it just be his line that he's using through turn 14, or was it a bit of a mistake? Is it going to allow a bit more drive for the likes of Rueda, for Xavier Artigas, and the retaining field which follows? You can see them using all of the straight, really, and going right over to the right-hand side of the track as we look at it, as they try to just break the slipstream from the riders behind. Of course, it's a bit of a dangerous tactic there, because it does make it quite aggressive if you cut back over to the line, as we saw with Rodriguez a few laps ago. Fortunately, on that occasion, all the riders being able to be quite sensible and very aware of what was happening. Look here, though, at the number 30 as well. This is David Munoz, who's coming from the front row of the grid, the second row of the grid, rather, I should say, in this race. His brother, Danny Munoz, as well, up into second position. David Munoz trying to get the better of Jose Rueda through the first corner. Didn't quite manage to make the move stick going through there, but still, this is very good stuff from the Jerez Andalusian motor talent team.
Yeah, exactly. I think that obviously we saw him kind of half-heartedly attempt that before and think better of it. That time absolutely nailed it. Perfectly done into second there. And it really looked like Rodriguez was going to... Oh, there you see he's a bit wide. I think he's going to lose out. Might be able to get it back on the inside if he's...
He's going to let the door to Rueda, though, if he's not too careful. And Rueda seeks an opportunity. He goes down the inside. My goodness me, he managed to make that stick. That was very, very optimistic and very aggressive from Jose Rueda. Managed to get himself up into second from fourth position.
Definitely. You can see the original mistake there was Rodriguez's, and then actually he's the one that gained the most from it with that shuffle behind. But it looked really last time around on the start-finish straight like he was going to lose out quite significantly. Didn't quite get the drive out of the final corner that he has had over the last few laps beforehand. But actually into turn one, again, just keeping that normal racing line and absolutely sticking to it, and no one could really make that work. Now, looks like Rueda maybe is a little bit itchy to take back the lead again, but Rodriguez is holding firm at the moment.
So through the right-hander of turn 13, down into turn 14, then we'll come into turn 15. This is getting very, very close indeed. You can see the leg just dangling slightly there for Jose Rueda as he just tries to slow that bike down. Often you'll see a lot of riders using it as a bit of an air brake. Here's David Salvador, who's made some very good ground, actually. David Salvador qualified in 13th position. He's fighting inside the top five, and well, it's exactly what we said, really. You can qualify quite far down the order, but here in the European Talent Cup, if you've got the right amount of pace to be able to use it and the right track position, and you're in the right place at the right time more than anything, then you can really take quite good advantage. You can see Jose Rueda, speaking of taking advantage, is trying to find his way past the number 91 of Victor Rodriguez once again. This is becoming quite a theme, is it not? So the Lees team watching on as we go down towards the first corner, and Xavier Artigas has gotten a great slipstream out of that final corner and over the line, and he leads into the first corner, and here comes David Salvador as well. So Rueda goes from potentially leading nearly down into fourth position in that first couple of turns as well. So that could have been very, very costly indeed for Rueda. He does manage to hold on to that third place, quite crucially as well, with David Munoz, rather, the two Munoz brothers close behind. And you can see that Rueda is up the inside once again. Oh, and somebody's gone down in the background there as well. And Xavier Artigas is still on board. He is, so somebody's lost it in the background of your shot there. Just trying to see who it was. It looks like it was Luis Verdugo that went down the road, unfortunately. So that is a shame there for him, down on the road at turn number 5. And unless he can remount, he'll be going no further in this race. Yeah, it looked like the bike had made quite a trip into the gravel there, but obviously Ryder a bit further towards the track, but well off the racing line and seemed up and okay. So that's good to see. But a bit of a heartbreaker that. I think it's, you know, at least they've got 2 races. I always say this, you know, you've got a chance to at least make yourself feel a bit better, even if you have cost yourself some points in race 1. But yeah, it doesn't look like that's going to be getting back in the race, unfortunately, I don't think. Yeah, it looks like he's won the lottery and lost the ticket there, doesn't he, really, more than anything, does Luis Verdugo. So hopefully he'll be having some better fortunes in race number 2. Back at the front, though, meanwhile, Jose Rueda for the Junior Estrella Galicia team still leading the way. Xavier Artigas there in 3rd position. He's looking menacing, as is David Salvador in 4th position as well. You've got to keep an eye out for the Munoz brothers close behind, as a big wobble for Salvador there in 4th position onto the back straight. Yeah, it's getting pretty feisty up here at the front now. As you can see, we've now kind of got
Well, there's a large front group, but and then there's a big gap back to that second group. But really, those guys at the back of this front group, they've not really been able to make much impression or move forward. They're kind of close together on track, but so far haven't really been involved in this fight, certainly for the lead. So I'm quite surprised so far that slipstream doesn't seem to be really giving that much advantage to the people just behind. But then again,
you say that, and turning it up to 11, they're so aggressively cutting across the track there. I do fear for the time when they do that, and sometime there'll be a motorbike parked on the racing line as they cut across.
This used to be a big Marquez tactic back in the day. He really would aggressively cut straight back across, and so also then as well, people learn that that's what you're going to do. That lends them to back off a little bit as well. You know, the sort of Senna attitude of, I am going to pass you, so it's up to you to be out the way.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I think it's not so bad at the moment. I think he's just doing it pretty authoritatively, but you have to definitely make sure that there is space to do that, and it's aggressive.
Oh, somebody's wide. Fran going in towards turn number 6, and they're
very wide.
Straight off into the car park. They keep it upright. Is that Francisco Gomez, who was out well wide? I couldn't quite see from that angle, but it was definitely a white motorcycle from what I saw on our screen here in the commentary box. We might get a replay of that one. Doesn't look like it's cost them too much time.
At least we've managed to slot back into the group and keep it upright, but yeah, that bit overcooked there.
Could have been a lot worse. Amazingly, we're already at the halfway stage in this European Talent Cup race, and it's still the top 3 that are battling. You can see here Rueda trying to find his way through, Xavier Artigas on the outside line, David Salvador there inside your top 4. Those top 4 really have kind of stayed a bit stagnant over the last couple of laps. They've been moving around in and amongst one another, but from 5th backwards, they've not really had the opportunity to be challenging for that race lead so far in these mid-stages here, Fran.
Yeah, definitely. So far, the guys just behind, they're not really making that much impression. Obviously, Munoz made that move a couple of laps ago into turn 1. That was very nicely done for second. But at the moment, it's still really been that story of Rodriguez and Rueda so far, and a bit of Artigas, which I find very hard to say Artigas without going Artigas, like his logo, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, these two guys at the moment, obviously, getting pretty tight through there.
That's Adrian Fernandez.
Indeed, just starting to threaten there. Maybe I've got commentator's curse going on a little bit.
Well, we had quite a few of those at Barcelona, so let's try to not have them, shall we?
Definitely.
Down to the first corner. Look at the number 28. That, of course, is the 658 bike of Matteo Bartelli, who was looking very aggressive down the inside. Didn't quite manage to make any moves stick through there, but he's still signalling his intentions. We've got a rider down at turn number 12. That is the number 42, which, just looking at our entry list, I'm afraid to say, is the number 42 of Sorma Gobe, the new Hungarian wildcard here for this weekend, which is why it's a name I didn't necessarily recognise. So hopefully he's up and okay, which is the main thing. But nonetheless, back at the front, still the top 4. The usual suspects lining astern. Somebody going well wide through there once again. Those different lines, probably not intentionally different lines, but they are taking different lines nonetheless.
Indeed. Yeah, there are a couple of guys there just well off the line there. Managed to get it nice and collected. Obviously, there's enough space to manage to do that and slot back in, but it does cost you time if it doesn't significantly damage your race. It looked like there might be some traffic coming up ahead soon.
Yeah, there's a possibility of that, of course, because we do have a few riders that were either a little bit slower or right down the order. Of course, the likes of Colin Felthausen, I think, is going to be the rider in question.
Yes, I was wondering it might be him, obviously getting a bit of a later start to this race after that issue on the grid.
Yeah, these riders, of course, lapping a little bit faster than Colin Felthausen, and over the course of that race, they are going to catch up with him. So hopefully the Dutchman is just able to back off where he needs to and get the retaining field past him, but he used to be backing off for quite a long time, really, more than anything. But
I think it's going to be quite spectacular because they're all coming pretty quick and they're pretty close together. Yep. So unfortunately, I think that's going to cost him a fair bit of time. But obviously, there's no real points up for grabs. He'll just want to get out the way and then concentrate on finishing the rest of the laps and getting information that he can use for the next race.
And he's even just decided to run off at the final corner there, has Colin Felthausen as well, and just to try and let the retaining field go through. I think that's a sensible decision, really, more than anything, because you've got 14 or 15 bikes going thundering past you, all battling for the same piece of tarmac. It only takes one wrong move from one rider just to end up for that to be quite a nasty incident on track. And once
Say
again,
14-15 though, there's 43 of them.
You can see Jose Rueda, meanwhile, just getting ruffled right out at that first corner. Victor Rodriguez again taking that aggressive sweeping over line into that first corner. Rueda having nowhere to go but the curb on the outside, and he's lost a lot of ground actually at that first turn following that one. He was battling for the lead of the race, and you can see him now outside of the top 5. So
yeah, definitely. I think maybe it was a bit of a commentator's curse. Very sorry, apologies. But yeah, Rodriguez obviously manages to just keep that lead with a bit more authority, and as you say, Rueda just got a little bit shuffled out there. And yeah, first time we've really seen him significantly off the lead by more than either a couple of positions, but much closer. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Now I expect he'll probably try and fight his way straight back up fairly quickly, but we'll see.
Certainly will do. It's a case of time will tell, and you really cannot predict anything here in the European Talent Cup because it is just exactly the opposite of that. It's so unpredictable, and anything really can happen. Here is what happened into the first corner. You can see Rodriguez aggressively chopping over to the side of Rueda, and well, the Estrella Galicia junior team, they're less than impressed with that one following it. And they will, I'm sure, be having a couple of words after that race. Hopefully Rueda is able to get himself fighting in contention for that race victory once again. Your top 3 now is Rodriguez from Carlos Torres, who's managed to really sort of get himself back in check ahead of Xavier Artigas. David Salvador there still in 4th place on the Cuna de Campeones Honda machine, the black and orange outfit. And you can see that Torres is trying to go for the race lead. He ducks left, he ducks right. He's trying to find his way past the race leader of Rodriguez, and down in towards that first corner. Rodriguez again going from the right-hand side of the track as we look at it over to the left. He's going to have to be careful on that one, especially in the final few laps, because there'll be absolutely no quarter given between these riders. So over the timing line you can see Torres trying to challenge for the race lead. Rodriguez pushing him right over towards the pit wall there, but not too far. Rodriguez again chopping back over aggressively. Here comes Matteo Bartelli as well. He's up into 3rd position. Is Bartelli a football player as well? Am I mistaken in thinking that?
Balotelli.
Balotelli, that's
Mario
it.
Balotelli.
I don't know a lot about football, as you can quite clearly tell. Our colleague Steve Day, I'm sure, will be on the blowers of me after that one. But Bartelli then, he was up into 3rd position, just losing a bit of ground now as well. Here comes 91 of Rodriguez down the inside at turn number 5. Does he find a way through? Yes, he does. He forces Torres to run wide over the green rumble strips, and now Torres is going to be losing out to Bartelli as well. Down into the right-hander of turn 6, which follows. Very close racing. Sorry, turn 7, which follows. Very close racing indeed between these riders. And now, as we come into the latter stages of this race, Fran, is where it's going to get very, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Now you've got me imagining Balotelli in the European Talent Cup, which would be very incredible.
Just a notice from race direction on our timing screen, the incident between number 91, a la Victor Rodriguez, and number 95, Jose Rueda, under investigation. So that, of course, will be the incident at the first corner where Rueda was pushed wide at the first turn. So let's see what will happen with race direction, whether they'll be slapping some penalties on or whether they'll just deem it as a racing incident. Somebody's going well off into the car park at turn number 12 as well. So they're going to be out of contention for this race. Didn't quite manage to catch who it was on the glimpse that we saw
just a
of
quick
that rider.
Flash of colour, wasn't it? But that's interesting because as far as I could see, there wasn't any contact, was there, in that incident? So it'd be interesting to see what the outcome of that investigation is. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Hopefully, it won't take them too long to at least give us a decision on that. 5 laps to go. Although I'm thinking 5 laps to go is nothing. Obviously, these guys, it's a well over 2-minute lap, so should be enough time.
Well, you'd have to say really that Rodriguez is looking for the favourite for the race victory as he dices down the inside of Carlos Torres. And I say that because anything can really happen, but it has looked very, very impressive from the number 91 of Rodriguez so far. You can see that incident is under investigation with the ticker tape at the bottom of your screen. Matteo Bartelli just going down the inside, or trying to at least once again. He's still in 3rd position, so still defends that podium place at the moment. But Torres as well, he would love to be able to right his wrongs. He finished, of course, in the gravel trap in Barcelona a couple of 4 weeks ago, rather, I should say, for the European Talent Cup, and he would love to try and redeem himself by getting onto that top step.
Yeah, I think definitely. But yeah, Rodriguez, I don't know. I guess, is this the replay of the incident? I think so. There
was a little smattering of contact there, wasn't there?
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. But obviously the move was quite decisively towards Rueda.
Forcefully aggressive, shall we say?
I think so, but I'm not sure. I'm not so sure about that. I think it'd be interesting to see what the stewards say and what they kind of name that incident, because I'm not sure if there was contact there, but I'm sure we will find out soon enough. But Rodriguez, obviously, you never really want penalties to take too much of a kind of guiding force in the decision of a race victory, but so far Rodriguez has really had the authority in this race. Just kept that lead, decisively taken it back when he's lost it, and really been the class of the field so far. Aggressively, definitely, but we'll have to see what race direction have to say about that.
Yep, certainly will do. It's going to be pretty exciting to see how this pans out with just 3 laps now remaining. You can see Rodriguez now with David Salvador behind, and Carlos Torresillas as well. The slipstream really coming into effect once again. These guys doing the full spinal tap and turning it up to 11 really in these last few laps. It's going to get pretty exciting as that long snake sneaks on down towards turn 16. Matteo Bartelli trying to find his way down the inside of Carlos Torresillas, as well as David Salvador as Bartelli runs wide, and getting his way through as well is Xavier Artigas by the looks of things. Indeed he is. So now onto the rostrum and in contention for that podium position. The JHK De Glees team watching on, pensive faces in that box at the moment as they try to see how this race is going to pan out. Rodriguez, meanwhile, still leads the way. Somebody running well wide at the first corner. Looks like it might have been one of the Munoz brothers for the Andalusia Jerez talent team, who was just a little bit out wide through and through there. So, Torresillas then, the rider attacking, the leader of Victor Rodriguez, trying to defend his lead. Attacking as well is David Salvador. He's into 4th position. Bartelli runs it a bit wide, loses a couple of positions. One mistake at turn 5, and he's now down into the lower half of the top 10 there. So this is getting very interesting and also getting even more aggressive as well in the latter stages, and somebody down in the background as well. So didn't quite catch who that was, unfortunately, but it does mean they're going to be out of contention here in this front group for this race victory. It's a yellow flag at turn number 7. Confirmation of that on our timing screens here in the commentary box at the moment. But unfortunately, we do lose a rider from this victory contention. Just looked like it was a simple low side and going out of your shots.
Yeah, definitely. It's all seemed to have gotten very frenetic in the last couple of laps, or even half a lap. Obviously, 3 laps to go. That means 2 full laps after this one is completed, which is still, you know, sort of, ooh, and running wide there. Is that Rodriguez? Slots back in. Oh, and another wobble there. That's really cost him a lot and caused everyone else behind him, obviously, to really have to shuffle and try and make sure they avoid him. I think there's a lot of drama now in this lead pack, isn't there? A lot of drama, and we've still got over 10 kilometres to go, even 15-ish.
I was just about to say, there's a lot of drama, but it's far from over. The rider who went down, unfortunately, at turn number 7, we've had confirmation of it was Pietro Pevalainen. So the Finnish rider, his luckless season, sadly, going from bad to worse in this race. He has got another one, though, this afternoon, so hopefully they can make their way through. The Munoz brothers, though, trying to go side by side with Victor Rodriguez. Rodriguez really getting shuffled out here and going well wide was the number 14 of Carlos Torresillas, the race leader over the timing line. Race direction will be keeping a very watchful eye on that now with 2 laps to go. Down to the first corner we are. Here's Xavier Artigas in 2nd place. Up into 3rd position is Rueda. Look there at Adrian Fernandez getting duffed up as well. Getting past him was David Salvador on the Cuna de Campeones machine. Into the right-hander, which does follow through the right of turn number 4. Then we'll flick it left into that ever-decreasing radius turn number 5. This is getting very frenetic, very action-packed, and it really is anybody's guess at the moment, as Rodriguez was very aggressively once again up the inside, trying to find his way through, trying to muscle his way past the rest of the field and try and get himself back into contention for that victory. And he's down the inside of David Salvador as well at the right-hander of turn number 7. So this is getting very aggressive indeed. Almost
a bit of flat tracking style there for Torresillas at the front. That was yeah, it's been a fairly spectacular few corners for these guys. And like you say, I think Rodriguez now, I think aggressive isn't the word, it's ruthless. Just cutting back through and yeah, definitely really on a mission here. But as you can see, Rueda now back in that front group and harrying them a little bit to try and get that lead back. So yeah, another lap after this one.
Top three
hotting up now.
Top three as well, just putting a bit of daylight between themselves, aren't they? Between themselves and Rodriguez. But on the brakes into turn number 12, that gap soon closes up quite a significant amount.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's seriously on a mission, is he, Mr. Rodriguez? So we'll have to see what's... Oh, looks like we're going to get an update on that penalty.
Mr. Rodriguez, he's going to be penalised with 0.3 of a second at the line. So he's going to have to pull out all the stops and some more. He's going to have to throw the kitchen sink at this last lap to try and get himself in contention for that race victory. So Race Direction deeming that he did gain an unfair advantage by forcing Rueda wide at that first corner. It's going to divide opinion, that incident. Here is Rueda as well. Speaking of him, just seeing a replay of what happened here. This is going into turn number 12. Ah, okay, that's actually why he was penalised, because maybe he gained an unfair advantage. No, he didn't, because he lost positions there. That was the wobble he had. So that was where it decided his race lead. And we're coming on to the final lap now as well. You can see that the Glees team watching on. They are not happy at all with that one, are they?
No, it's a fairly dramatic incident here, and you can see that wobble again as well there. We'll have to see how this plays out. I guess, like you say, that's a different incident to the... that looks like, yeah, a simple time penalty for that incident and that runoff. Obviously, usually that's what you get the time penalty for, is when you've, like, not...
Yeah, we just had confirmation on our screen there, Fran, timing screen that is, that he's been penalised at the end of the race with what they've deemed as an illegal manoeuvre. I'm not quite sure on the wording of that one, but regardless, that is a big shame there for the number 91 of Victor Rodriguez. He's been very aggressive, almost ruthless in some stages. Somebody's out well wide as well. Meanwhile, crossing back to the action on the final lap then, it is the number 14 of Carlos Torresillas who leads the way. Jose Rueda trying to find his way through at the reverse corkscrew. Can't quite manage to make anything stick through there, but he has got that 968 metre long back straight to try and plan a move, to try and use that slipstream and to try and find his way past before the end of this crucial final lap.
Yeah, definitely. He's looking fairly racy now here. I'm still not sure on that wording which manoeuvre that means. We'll see what happens there with that. But obviously Rodriguez now, if he is going to get onto the podium, he's going to have a sizable chunk of time behind him to manage to stay clear of that, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do it now by this point on this lap.
I'll tell you what, even though we've had a 14-lap race here for the European Talent Cup, guys, there's still fastest first and second sectors coming in from riders. The fastest first sector was Carlos Torresillas. The fastest second sector, as Torresillas takes a big look over his shoulder, was David Salvador. And Rueda, after Torresillas uses the slipstream and gets past with relative ease. So Torresillas, whether he made a mistake, he got very poor drive coming out of that final corner, and it could be set to cost him victory here as well. Down in towards turn number 16 we go. Xavier Artigas down the inside. Likewise, Victor Rodriguez as well. Rodriguez leads the way at the final corner. Don't forget, he needs 0.3 of a second to try and take that race victory. He's not going to get it. It's going to be a drag to the line as well. Xavier Artigas going for the win. Rodriguez takes it, but it will be Xavier Artigas then who ends up on the top step of the podium here in European Talent Cup Race 1. Absolutely brilliant. No, in fact, I apologise. It's going to be Rueda according to our timing screens. I think that's, yeah, in fact, it is Rueda. So Jose Rueda just managed to pip Artigas then on the line. So a lot of confusion here in the commentary box, but unfortunately the main upshot of it is that Victor Rodriguez will not be crowned the victor despite crossing the line 0.006 of a second faster, ahead rather, of everybody else. So that's a big shame there for Victor Rodriguez, but Race Direction coming down on him like a ton of bricks following that one. Jose Rueda then will be your de facto race winner. There he is on the number 95, just 12 years of age, the youngest ever pole sitter in the European Talent Cup. He took that accolade yesterday, and he's taken the race win in race number 1 here today. You can see David Salvador with the Andreas Perez flag waving here in memory, of course, of their late colleague, and a brilliant, brilliant performance for David Salvador as well. One of the best we've seen of the season, just missing out on the podium. In fact, no, I apologise, just missing out on the podium. He will, I'm just having a look as the timing screens are adjusted here in the commentary box. So let's see if we can piece together who is finishing where. So according to what we have on the timing screens, it says Xavier Artigas is the race winner, but according to the graphic we have on screen, it is Rueda. So a bit of confusion here in the commentary box at the end of lap 14. I think there's a mistake on our timing screen, and I'm fairly sure that this man here, Jose Rueda, has been crowned the victor after that one then. So I think that the podium will be Rueda finishing ahead of Artigas, and then third position remains to be seen, but it could be Rodriguez, or it could be David Salvador, depending on the gap. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Here is Xavier Artigas then. Confirmation on your screen that he finishes in second position, and Artigas as well. Another good result for the Honda Impala outfits. He'll be very pleased with that one. And of course, he's got the opportunity to try and go one better in race number 2 later on this afternoon. So the flag waving, of course, in memory of Andreas Perez on their reconnaissance lap back to the pit lane. Jose Rueda then, he is crowned the race victor, just 12 years of age in the European Talent Cup, and a brilliant, brilliant performance from the number 95. And you can see how much it means to him. His first win on the European stage, his first win in the European Talent Cup, just 12 years old as well. That's perhaps the most impressive thing. Julian Simon there on the left-hand side of your picture. Big, big congratulations. David Salvador, does he get the podium? Yes, he does. So there we go, confirmation. David Salvador, I'm saying his best result of the season in 4th place. Actually, his best result of the season with that podium in 3rd position as well. Brilliant stuff for him. And Victor Rodriguez, well, I'm not sure if he knows yet. He'll be sick as a parrot following that one, though. Probably wanting to pull back into Parc Ferme, but it's not going to be his day. Here is the manoeuvre then that cost... in fact, this is what happened to the line, I apologise. Over the line, you can see there, Rueda just finishing by the smallest of margins ahead of Xavier Artigas. It was, of course, Rodriguez who came over the line first, but subsequently getting that 0.3 of a second penalty does demote him down outside of the podium battle. That is very bittersweet for Victor Rodriguez. A good performance from him inside the top 5, but when you've crossed the line in 1st position thinking you've won the race, that is not the way you want to be doing things at all. So you can see there Xavier Artigas, 2nd place for him. David Salvador in 3rd position as well. Very good performance from the top 3. Some exciting racing, very aggressive in those final few stages, as we've really sort of become used to more than anything here in the European Talent Cup. Some very impressive performances from all involved. And let's see what will happen in race number 2 later on this afternoon. We'll be down in Parc Ferme talking with the race winner of Jose Rueda in a few moments' time to gather his thoughts on what's been a very exciting race so far. So let's cross down then into Parc Ferme. Fran is with the race winner, Jose Rueda. So hopefully we can bring you that interview in just a couple of moments' time. We're just getting everything in place down there in Parc Ferme. And here then is Rueda.
An absolutely incredible race there, an amazing win. How does that feel?
Yes, he's very, very happy because it's the difficult race, and thanks for the team and for the patrocinios.
Y ahora también en castellano, si nos puedes explicar un poco más.
Bueno, la carrera ha sido muy difícil porque había muchos pilotos delante, cerraban muy bien los huecos, era difícil adelantar y bueno, al final se vio gestionarlo bien y al final quedado primero y estoy muy contento y se lo agradezco mucho al equipo y a todos los patrocinadores.
Gracias, enhorabuena.
So some highlights then from the race. Very impressive as well for Jose Rueda as well. 12 years old and a very good command of English at such a young age. So it was Rodriguez then who led the way in towards the first corner despite Rueda's pole position. And really that kind of set the tone for the rest of the race. It was some very aggressive moves, some very big battles going up and down the field. Rodriguez hit the front, but then Rueda tried to retaliate. The rest of the field fighting and not giving each other any quarter at all in any way, shape or form. It was very impressive indeed. See Xavier Artigas, he came up through the field, forced his way onto the podium positions. You can see Rueda, this was where he took the advantage back. Rodriguez as well, as Luis Verdugo in the background slipped out of the race. Meanwhile, there were some good moves as well from the two Munoz brothers as they tried to find their way through. Over the timing line meanwhile as they went, and this was number 95 of Rueda, just getting bettered by 91 of Rodriguez and number 43 of Xavier Artigas. Going through the first corner, some very aggressive moves indeed, but some very close racing. Over the timing line they went. Lots of very fast racing indeed. Lots of aggressive overtakes. And this was the moment that decided the race really for Victor Rodriguez. An aggressive move, he cut across the track and was deemed to have been a bit too aggressive on that occasion. in getting past Jose Rueda. Rueda, of course, losing some positions following that one. He ended up being the race winner anyway, but regardless, certainly didn't help his cause. You can see they're very wide as well for Victor Rodriguez, and a big moment as well for Carlos Torresillas going on to that final lap. He took a big look over his shoulder, and that was all the ticket that number 95 of Rueda needed, really, to take advantage. Rodriguez tried to find his way through down the inside. He had a great run on that final straight. He found his way through at the final corner, and Xavier Artigas said thank you very much and picked the pocket of Rueda as well. It was always going to be a drag to the line here in the European Talent Cup, and so it proved to be on this occasion. And down to the line, it was Rodriguez who crossed the line first, ahead of Rueda and Artigas. But of course, that 0.3 of a second penalty that the number 91 of Rodriguez was given after that race deems the number 95, Jose Rueda, taking his first ever win in the European Talent Cup. A brilliant race, a brilliant performance, and some very exciting action. So, final race results then here in the European Talent Cup at MotorLand Aragón. You can see that Jose Rueda takes his first win in the championship ahead of Xavier Artigas and David Salvador. Victor Rodriguez, getting that penalty, finishes in just 4th position at the checkered flag. So, Torresillas, Fernandez, Danny Munoz, David Munoz in 7th and 8th place for Statek. Good performance from the Czech rider, actually, inside the top 9, breaking the stronghold of the Spaniards. And speaking of the Spaniards, you can see an all-Spanish podium as well here in Spain at MotorLand Aragón. So, the trophies presented on the podium to the runners and riders. Good stuff as well for the Estrella Galicia talent team. They are presented with the team's trophy. David Salvador in 3rd position. Cuna de Campeones team, of course, that he is with. His first podium this season. Will it be the last? I'm sure it won't be. He's a very talented young rider. Xavier Artigas, not his first podium this year. And a great performance from the number 43. And just 12 years of age, despite being on the top 7 of the podium, he's actually shorter than the 2 riders beside him. Jose Rueda, his first win on the European stage then here in the FIM CEV Repsol for the European Talent Cup. And even better than that, he gets a petrol check to take home with him, which is actually a little bit taller than he is. So Jose Rueda then. The extended version of the Spanish national anthem. You don't get that very often nowadays. Jose Rueda then and the Estrella Galicia team celebrating an absolutely emphatic win in 2018. Rueda's first win at just 12 years of age here in the European Talent Cup. Brilliant performance from him. Great performance from the top 3 as well. And there'll be celebrations going right on until the start of race 2, I'm sure. Will they be able to make it 2 out of 2, or will we see a different pecking order in race 2 later on this afternoon? Only time will tell on this occasion. You can see them there holding the flag, of course, in memory of Andreas Perez as well. So that is really nice to see. Let's have a look at the championship standings then, shall we? Following race 1 here at MotorLand Aragón. Mateo Pataca still manages to hold on to his advantage, but it has been reduced to just 11 points ahead of Xavier Artigas, Julian Herrao, 18 points adrift. Meanwhile, you can see there Francisco Gomez, Barry Bautas now moved up to Moto 3, so he's not in contention for the title anymore. Jose Rueda with that win, he moves up to 7th position ahead of David Salvador and Adrian Fernandez now, so that's really good stuff to see. And you can see there a smattering of Spaniards in and amongst the top 10. Peter Pavalainen sadly crashed out of that race. He doesn't manage to make any inroads into the top 10. Still sits just on the bubble there in 10th position, 3 points ahead of Carlos Torresillas. Very impressive stuff, though. You can see the runners and riders further down the order. Miguel Parro, Lorenzo Felon, and then Luis Verdugo, who crashed out of that race as well. Dirk Geiger, Clement Rouget, Colin Feldhausen, sadly really never got going following that one as well. It was a difficult race from start to finish more than anything. Josh Watley there in 26th position as well. Bit of a challenging race there for Josh Watley, finishing down in 24th place right at the checkered flag. So he'll be hoping for a little bit more in race 2 this afternoon. But A very exciting race then here for the European Talent Cup for race 1 at MotorLand Aragón. Stand by your beds because Moto 3 Junior World Championship race will be on the way in just a couple of moments.